Good afternoon, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Gary McCarthy. I'm head of risk at Spark Crowdfunding. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and particular to all our US-based investors. We've got two great companies on at the webinar this afternoon. We've got AuriGen Medical and Pure Ocean Algae. We're going to kick off with AuriGen Medical. Dr. John Thompson's online with us to give us the latest news and updates around clinical trials and their plans for 2025. But, you know, in a nutshell, the Zenith device that AuriGen Medical has created, has innovated with, is a potential game changer in stroke prevention. The initial first-in-human trials in New Zealand are extremely promising. It's going to be a really exciting 2025 with potentially a Series A and further clinical trials to follow. But just as a reminder, there's probably quite a few of you on this webinar that have invested in AuriGen before. This is the fourth raise that AuriGen has done through us, and I can pretty certainly say that this is going to be the last opportunity for a private investor really to get involved in this exciting story. AuriGen wanted to raise €500,000. We're actually at 800,000 now, just over that. This will be closing quite soon. And just as a quick reminder on the EIS side of things, this is eligible for a 50% tax rebate in 2024 against 2024 income. A quick bit of housekeeping before we start with John. In terms of your questions, can you put them into the Q&A tab, not the chat tab? And we'll do our best to feed them into John when he's finished his presentation, which will be sort of 10 to 12 minutes long. So, John, over to you, and I will return for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Gary. I hope everybody can see my presentation there. So to introduce myself, my name is John Thompson. I'm the CEO of AuriGen Medical. I am a medical doctor by training, and after completing my medical training, I was an anesthesiologist and intensive care doctor. I worked a lot with cardiothoracic patients during my time in medicine. I then went to work for Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, and then after a number of years in there, started AuriGen Medical with my co-founding team in Galway, Tony O'Halloran and Sharon McLean. So a little bit about the company. So we're now a clinical stage medtech company, and we are developing a minimally invasive implant to manage chronic cardiac disease. So our device is implanted through a very small incision in the groin via catheter procedure, and our device is implanted into the left atrial appendage of the heart. And these types of procedures are designed to reduce patient stroke risk and to be able to take patients off oral anticoagulant medication. At the moment, we have now just completed first-in-human implantations of our Zenith device. Those studies were performed in New Zealand, in centres in Christchurch and Auckland. The physician feedback from the implanting physicians has been very positive. They believe the technology is a significant step forward for left atrial appendage occlusion procedures, in that our device really addresses a lot of the limitations of the current technology that's there. We've had very positive feedback so far in our initial patients. Those patients have had the procedures went without any complications. There was no procedural related adverse events, no device related adverse events, and those patients are doing very well at home. I think, you know, our company is now at the point where we're looking to move to do a Series A next year. We have a very strong team supporting us with that Series A raise, and we have a lot of interest at the moment from both strategic and VC investors who are actually coming to us at the moment, which is great. So a little bit of a look at the background to the problem. So atrial fibrillation, I'm sure most people on the call will know somebody in their life who has atrial fibrillation, but it's the most common cardiac arrhythmia. Over 100 million patients around the world suffer with this condition, and it increases patients' risk of having blood clots and ultimately having strokes. There are many patients out there who can't tolerate or don't want to be on oral anticoagulants long term. And for those patients, the most appropriate step and next intervention would be to have their left atrial appendage occluded or surgically closed. There are a number of occluders on the market. Really, two are FDA approved at the moment. One is Boston Scientific's Watchman device, and the second is Abbott Vascular's Amulet device. So there are only two devices on the market. Boston Scientific have by far the lion's share of the market, with around 90% of all LAA occluders sold. And to be honest, it's been hugely commercially successful for Boston Scientific. This year, they're going to probably be very close to $2 billion in sales from that device alone. And only just this week, they announced new study results on their Watchman device, which said that it was safe to use immediately after ablation. And on the basis of that result alone, their share price jumped by over $6.5 billion. So you can see that this is a key area of focus for Boston Scientific, and the market opportunity is very clear. Unfortunately, the existing devices, and that includes Watchman device and the Amulet device, are challenging for new users. They're not particularly easy devices to implant. They don't have fantastic control or precision, and they have fixed barbs on the outside of the device that make repositioning challenging. There's a steep learning curve associated with these devices. It can take up to 90 implants before the complication rate goes to baseline. And there is certainly some safety risks around leaks around the existing devices, and it's certainly a focus for many physicians now who are implanting these devices. That's where I suppose the AuriGen LAA system comes in. So we've designed this to be minimally invasive. It can be done in a 30-minute outpatient procedure. We have a very unique handle design, which allows for complete control of the device throughout the deployment. We don't have any anchors present during the deployment of the actual device. So it means that physicians can move it in and out. They can reposition it without any risk of injuring the patient. Our device itself is very, very soft and moldable. And so what it does is it molds to each patient's left atrial appendage, and so reduces that risk of peri-device leaks. We also allow the physician to be able to flush contrast into the left atrial appendage when the implant is in position, which allows them to actually verify that there's no leaks at the time of procedure. We're the only device that allows physicians to do this. And all of these things really are designed to encourage new users to embrace the technology. And we believe by encouraging new users, there's an opportunity to really grow this market even more aggressively than it's already growing. We have 32 patents granted to date in the US, in Europe, Japan, China, and we have 32 patents currently in progress. This is some images of our device. So we have this precision controlled handle, which allows the physician to have complete control of the device during deployment. It's made from a braided nitinol, so that's a shape memory metal, and very, very compliant, very soft. And we have this unique self-closing conduit on the surface of our device, and that's designed to improve the safety of the device and prevent any blood from clotting around the face of the device, and that's a risk that's been seen with the existing devices. And we have this unique independent anchoring system, which our device is the only system to have this completely independent anchoring system, which means that the physician can deploy the device, and only when they're really happy with it do they have to actually anchor it in place and lock it in. And this anchoring system is self-leveling, and each anchor is independent of each other. So it means that it can adapt to each patient's unique anatomy. Our device is designed around a modular platform. So in the future, we're currently in preclinical testing with them adding remote monitoring capabilities and treatment options as well for patients. As we said, we have had the first patients have been implanted in Auckland and Christchurch. It was the procedure itself was done through a very small incision, minimally invasive, short procedure. The procedure was uneventful. We had no device-related adverse events. The patients were fit for discharge on the same day, but we kept them in overnight as per our clinical protocol. The follow-up scans have been really excellent. We've had no complications, and those patients have been followed up now 6 weeks post-implant. And at the moment, I'll be flying out to Australia mid next month to train the next group of physicians in Australia as we continue our clinical trials. Looking at the market, so market analysts predict that this is going to be one of the largest markets in medtech in the coming years, and it's really driven from the fact that atrial fibrillation is exploding worldwide. At the moment, last year the market was worth around $2 billion, with Boston Scientific's Watchman making up the majority of that. But analysts predict this is going to grow at 25 to 30% over the next 6 to 7 years as more and more patients require this intervention. And for our point, from our perspective, we feel that this growth is maybe even conservative. At the moment, there are new indications, new reimbursement codes in the US, which will allow LAA occlusion to be done with ablation. So every year in the US is around 300,000 to 400,000 patients have ablation for AFib. If even half of these patients were to get LAA occlusion under this new reimbursement code, that would essentially, grow the market around threefold almost overnight. And we know that this DRG, this new reimbursement code, is really going to drive a lot of activity in the LAA space. Looking at our own business model, we're looking at regulatory approval in Europe in 2028 and regulatory approval in the US in 2029. I think we're tracking a base case that 4 years after regulatory reimbursement, we could be at 300 million in sales, and that 300 million would represent just 3% of the LAA market at that moment in time. We feel this is a realistic target, but again, our exit strategy is acquisition by one of the large strategic players, and I think in their hands, with their resources, the opportunity for $1 billion plus in sales is very much there. I think one of the other key things about our technology is that for any potential acquirer, they're not just acquiring an LAA occluder, but they're also acquiring a platform, and that platform ultimately will have remote patient monitoring and treatment modalities in place, which should enhance the acquisition potential for the technology. We have a proven leadership team. So our co-founder, Shira McLean, is our Chief Operations Officer, and she has 25 years experience working with Abbott and Craig Anna. Tony is our Chief Technology Officer. He has extensive experience working in Medtronic as an R&D engineer. Our chairman, Pierre, was a European, Boston Scientific's European heart rhythm lead, and actually launched Boston's Watchman device in Europe. And Christine Blanchette is another board member, and she was vice president of product development for Medtronic's atrial fibrillation solution. And we have a fantastic clinical advisory board with interventional cardiologists and electrophysiologists from Germany and the United Kingdom. The company was set up by myself and the other co-founders, but we were very much focused on patients. And that's always been the mission of the company, to be leaders in curing chronic cardiac disease and restoring patients to people. And that's something we take very seriously, and it's really in the culture and the DNA of the company. And everything we've done to this point has been to try and improve the outcomes for our patients. We believe this is an exceptional investment opportunity. We're at a critical juncture now. All of the focus of the company up until now has been to get to first in human and to demonstrate that our device really is as good as we believed it was. And all of the evidence we've had to date suggests that that's the case. We have a fantastic device which really seems to have significant benefits for patients and physician implanters. This investment is to allow us to really start to get ahead of our supply chain. So obviously we work with an international supply chain, and we want to be in a position where we can start to put those orders in and start to get our company ready for commercialization. And this funding will allow us to hit the ground running, be able to start some very early clinical trials, even pre-Series A raise, and then use that Series A raise to be able to dramatically increase the number of patients. And it's really, patients for us are the critical kind of milestone which any potential acquirer will look at when they're considering whether or not they want to purchase the company. And by gathering more patient data, we'll put ourselves in a much stronger position for a potential acquisition. Um, as I said, very, very, very promising first in human results to date. Our physicians really do see the advantages of our technology. We've been successful in the past. We've been very successful with European Horizon funding, Horizon Europe funding. Um, we've also received investment from the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund, and this is obviously our fourth Spark funding round. So we've had a lot of very credible sources review what we're doing and believe that we're worthy of investment and that what we're doing really has the potential to make a difference for patients. And this has been recognized academically as well. And just next month we will travel out to Frankfurt, where we will have a presentation at one of the largest LAA conferences in Europe. Again, because I think there's a lot of excitement about new technologies in this space. From an exit potential, I mean, I think really for us, the key kind of milestone that we're looking at is generating as much clinical data as we can in our technology. And the more clinical data we generate, the higher likelihood of us getting acquired by one of the large strategic multinationals. Potential acquirers in this space are obviously, the big multinational medtech companies like Abbott, Boston Scientific, Medtronic, um, Biosense Webster, J&J Company, Biotronic. There have been recent exits in our exact space, in the left atrial appendage space. So just in the last few months, Johnson & Johnson purchased a company called Laminar for 400 million upfront with significant milestone payments after that. And at the time of purchase, Laminar had probably done somewhere in the region of 25 to 30 patients. So not hugely ahead of where we are at the moment. And there have been other companies in the space too. V-Wave is another left atrial company, and that company was purchased for 1.7 billion. They're a little bit further ahead than we are. They're a little bit closer to regulatory approval. But again, there's a lot of activity in this space for very obvious reasons. The multinationals see the enormous potential in the space. So as I said, why is this a good investment? We now have clinical data, which is, it can't be understated in this area. It is very, very challenging to get to clinical data with a permanently implanted cardiac device. 45 patents granted and pending. The LAA occluder market is growing dramatically. There have been recent acquisitions in this space, and I think investors can expect 50% EIS tax relief on this, making it a very attractive investment. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, John. That was great. I'm sort of aggregating a number of questions here coming in from investors around, and probably is pertinent to your last two slides. I suppose it's the sequencing. I even said in my opening comments around it, an exciting 2025. Do you want to talk a little bit about the sequencing around, we have this sort of bridge financing scenario to before Series A. What does, I suppose, really trying to match up the Series A funding, that amount, what does that equate to in terms of patient data and numbers of patients? Can you put a bit of color on that, please?
And for what we'll achieve with the Series A data, is it?
Yeah.
With the Series, yeah.
Series
So
A funding, what does that exponentially change in terms of the growth of the patient base database?
So Series A funding, we're really focused on two main things. The first thing is to conduct a much larger feasibility study. So with our device, it's very like pharma insofar as there's really kind of three stages to the clinical pathway. The first is getting initial patient data. That's relatively small patient data, which we have now. The next phase is doing a larger study, normally 40 to 50 patients. That's called a feasibility study. And then the final stage is the pivotal study, which is for regulatory approval. So the Series A funding is to do the feasibility study, 50 patients. We will have centers in the US for that. That'll be funded through Series A. And with that data, we'll be able to go back to the FDA and get permission to do our pivotal study. And that's a kind of a critical milestone for potential acquisition. At that point, we now have enough clinical data to say our device is safe. It appears to work. And now what we need to do is do the larger regulatory study to validate that. And obviously be able to commercialize the product. So Series A will get us 50 patients and FDA approval for a pivotal study, both of which are critical milestones for potential acquisition.
Thank you. I'm actually joined by Melissa Power, my colleague. He's Director of Private Clients in Spark Private. He probably will have a few questions for you now, John, coming from the investor
Thank you,
base.
Gary.
Sure, John. Who manufactures the device, John, and where is it done? Where is it manufactured?
So our device, we have a number of components. So we have some of our components are manufactured in Germany. Some of the components are manufactured in Ireland as well. So I don't want to disclose exactly who our supply chain are, but we have part of the device is manufactured in Germany and part then is manufactured in Ireland here.
Perfect. Great, thanks. Another question is, what will your liquidity position be post this raise, and what is your projected cash burn rate?
Yeah, so liquidity post this raise, we should have enough finances to take the company through to the end of third quarter of next year. And we're currently in discussions now with a number of VCs and strategics at the moment. So we're optimistic that we'll have closed our Series A before that point. And there was another part to the question, sorry.
Cash burn.
And
Cash burn.
the
Yeah,
cash
so
burn rate,
our
yeah.
cash burn at the moment is between 250 and 300,000. It obviously varies depending on the number of patients that are enrolled in a given time period.
Okay. One other question. It's in relation to your Series A and your Series B round. For those who have invested in previous rounds and in this round, will they have an option to sell or partially sell their shares in the Series A or Series B rounds?
It's unlikely. That's unlikely.
Yeah.
That's not normally the structure of those rounds. So that's unlikely. I can't say no, but I would say it's unlikely.
Okay, I've got one here as well for you, John. Just verbatim, given scale of opportunity, what does the competitive landscape look like for other novel technologies in this space?
Yeah, so there are a number of other novel technologies. I suppose that really, when you look at the number of technologies that are actually at the stage where they have put their technology in front of the FDA, there are really only two. There's Conformal Medical and there's Laminar, which was purchased by Johnson and Johnson. So those are the only two companies that are currently engaged with the FDA and potentially looking towards pivotal studies. What I can say about Conformal is that their study has been suspended since last April. So they're currently not enrolling any patients. They had some issues with their device and they've had to suspend their studies. So at the moment, there's really only one device and they've just started their FDA studies. And that company was obviously purchased by Johnson & Johnson before they even started that study. So there's two devices approved and at the moment, only one device that's actively recruiting patients within the space. So there are a number of companies that are earlier than that, but not at the stage where they're actually actively engaged with the FDA.
Okay, and I have a $600 million question, perhaps again verbatim, a piece of string question, but assuming trials and regulatory approvals proceed on track, what's your best estimate, a range of exit price and timeline? Lovely.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very, very difficult. What I can say is that there are a number of things that happened in the market very recently. So a brand new study was released, as I said, by Boston Scientific, which showed that you could do ablation and occlusion safely in the same procedure and that it was as good or better than oral anticoagulants. So that's the first thing. So that had a massive impact on the market. So as soon as that was released, Boston Scientific share price jumped by over 6.5 billion. The second thing that happened was that the US have just allowed a new reimbursement code called DRG 317. And that means that a hospital can get paid up to $60,000 to do a procedure that takes an hour. So they can do an ablation and then put in an LA occluder and get paid $60,000. And now we know that that's safe to do. So those two things have dramatically changed the commercial landscape for LAA occlusion. And given that it was already growing at 25% per year, the growth trajectory now could easily be, significantly higher than that. And given that the reimbursement code for the combined procedure is one of the highest in the whole of the US, I mean, outside of heart transplant, this is pretty much the most lucrative procedure you can now do as a hospital. So I think I'm not going to tell you how much we could be purchased for, but I think all signals are saying if we have good clinical data, there are only 2 approved players in the market and nobody's coming there quickly after it. So, you know, it's going to be supply and demand. And there's not much supply and there's enormous demand.
Very good.
Thank you. Great.
Anything from Elise there? I've one more probably here.
Yeah. No, that's it now. Yeah.
So just a sort of a final one. You mentioned sort of regulatory and the US. I'm taking. Are there other markets apart from the US that are a focus, or is that just the total focus right now? Is American market FDA approval?
Yeah, so no, it's not the total focus. I mean, we will get as part of the FDA, as part of that large pivotal trial, we've engaged with notified bodies here in Europe. So we'd be looking to secure CE mark along that journey, and CE mark would allow us to commercialize the device across the EU, but also in other allied markets that accept CE mark. So that's like Australia, New Zealand, some of the Middle Eastern countries, obviously the United Kingdom, Canada. And those are all secondary markets. As I said, 90% of the global sales of LAA occluders at the present moment in time is the US. So the US has to be our kind of core focus, but it's not that we would exclude the other markets. But FDA approval is obviously the most commercially relevant market.
I have a final one here, actually, just it's talking about commercialization, and it is with the US focus. How do you plan to ramp up skills and resources to adequately cover the US market, just in the US?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, you know, we have a sales plan in place. I mean, I think, you know, being very pragmatic about this, you know, the likely exit for us is an exit well before sales. And if we were to go to the point where we were going to bring this all the way to regulatory approval and sales, we would IPO the company at that stage and likely significantly change the management structure of the company if we're going to commercialize it. But that certainly is not, it's not the standard route for, you know, 99% of medtech companies or pharma companies, you know, in this kind of space. So, you know, our focus has been very much on clinically de-risking the device and showing that it's safe and effective, and engaging with the FDA and securing those permissions for pivotal trials. But we do have a sales plan in place. But I mean, I think it's unlikely that would be the exit route we would go down.
Thank you. I think that's kind of it. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on quickly, but just as a reminder to everybody, this will be a matter of days away from closing. EIS relief at 50%, data gathering on patients and clinical trials moving at pace. It sounds like 25, 26 can be a very interesting time. Huge market. You know, in the whole sort of medtech, I suppose, competitive space, there seems to be a head start that AuriGen Medical have. You know, it's a very exciting one, and as I said, it's the last chance really for anybody. I know somebody was asking a question about selling into Series A, but it's the last opportunity as an individual investor probably to get in to this story at this point in its development. So thank you, John. I'll now move on to Pure Ocean Algae, all the way from the beautiful Beara Peninsula. Michael O'Neill, founder, chief executive, dare I say it, just seaweed guru. The whole ecosystem this guy has covered. Pure Ocean Algae is involved in lots of aspects of the seaweed ecosystem, from sort of cultivation out to sort of nutrition, agricultural products. But I suppose the range of services and products that Pure Ocean Algae have, it is, as I also need to remind webinar attendees, that this is already revenue generating, and it is already attracting international interest in terms of partnerships with Hong Kong and French counterparties. So I suppose the key differentiator, as Michael will talk you through in more detail, is this ability to scale up. That's where Pure Ocean Algae has got to very quickly, but after a lot of investment. And as a reminder on the sort of the funding mechanics, the target is to raise 1.2 million euros. already 1 million has been raised, and that has included some very interesting institutional money that are have domain expertise in this area of marine innovation. So I'll hand over to Michael now. Again, the Q&A will be done on the Q&A tab, but I'll leave it to you, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, my name is Michael O'Neill, and I'm the CEO of Pure Ocean Algae. We are a fully integrated seaweed company. We are, sorry, I'm just having a problem here with my, bear with me for 1 second. So again, we are a seaweed-based, impact-driven biotechnology company. And we have ownership and complete control of our end-to-end process, from sporophytes, which we create in our laboratories, to customer-facing products. We're based in West Cork, and we currently have a team of 7. From our 30,000 square foot hatchery and nursery through to deployment and harvesting on our 56 hectares of sea sites, we've created high-quality biomass products from kelp and dulse. At our pilot production plant, we're now processing, creating, and supplying added value products to customers in the form of high protein supplements and precision biostimulants. We're now looking to expand our processing capabilities through a second investment, with the intention of progressing to a Series A round in the next 2 to 3 years. I suppose healthcare trends are leading towards natural dietary supplements, again, to replace products which are basically anything but natural. Pure Ocean Algae grows seaweeds to create much needed added value products. The number of potential uses for seaweed at the moment are huge. They vary from fertilizers all the way to farm products. I suppose over the last 3 years, we've developed, I suppose, an understanding of where we should sit in the market, and we've identified natural dietary supplements and biostimulants as the most appropriate products for the species that we produce. So the journey started in 2019. We acquired licenses for 2 commercial sites. We then successfully applied to the Irish government for DTIF funding of €2 million, which was to domesticate Palmyra palmata, or the red seaweed called dulse, and investigate the uses of a protein fraction in the management of type 2 diabetes. I suppose that, again, this is a very successful program for us. We closed our first round of funding in 2022. That was 1.5 million. 2023, we expanded our production capacity on our sea sites. We also closed out the complete production cycle for dulse, a world first, and commenced working on the development of our kelp products. 2024 has seen dulse production surpassing all expectations. Again, our kelp production, absolutely fantastic. We've always known that Ireland is a great place to grow seaweeds. We just proved it. Again, 24 has seen our first orders for our high protein supplements, as well as completion of our first precision biostimulant product. Again, these have been currently assessed by a biostimulant company based in France called Algae. 2024 also saw substantial orders for our cultivation material, which we produce in our hatchery, from a company called Carbon Capture, creating another income stream. We're currently finalising the development of another 4 dulse-based functional capsulated products, which we hope to bring to market in 2025. I suppose the key component to our success to date has been the winning of our DTI research funding. The consortium consisted of the Carberry Group and the University of Limerick. It was a 4-year project which helped us develop IP around dulse production in the hatchery and at sea, which again is an industry first. It also gave us a deep understanding of the extraction processes for high-value functional bioactives, culminating in human intervention trials for dulse protein fraction, which took place in 2023. The results of these were very successful, but we realised the development of a marketable product would take further research, further human trials, and again, considerable amount of resources. But it's the secondary learnings and experiences which ultimately provided us with the understanding of where we should be focusing going forward. And the areas that came to the forefront were the natural functional dietary supplements and plant biostimulants. I suppose, again, we have a very large market. The global market for seaweeds is going from 7 billion to 16 billion by 2023. You know, it's a relatively large market. Dietary supplement market is 167 billion. Again, growing at a very substantial rate of 7.4%. It's a big market. I think the natural dietary supplement alternatives on a trend, there's a high demand. The market is looking for these natural alternatives, and we can actually provide them. The plant biostimulant market, likewise, currently growing rapidly. A huge requirement for sustainable agriculture to replace chemical fertilizers, which brown seaweeds can actually do by reducing the amount of chemical fertilizer required, and very possibly in the future replacing the need for chemical fertilizers. So again, the company has an opportunity to access up to 30 million in sales of supplement products and biostimulant products based on European and Asian markets over the next 5 to 7 years. And we think these are conservative levels of revenue. So I suppose the solution, we feel seaweed is part of the solution for a lot of things, but we're at a very pivotal point in our business. We've carried out 4 years of very successful research. We're commencing our commercialization journey. We've identified high growth markets and produce highly sought after innovative products. Again, this is a very exciting time for our company. I suppose our model is straightforward. We supply cultivation material to other farmers and partner farmers. We then consolidate the biomass production and create high value products from that. Working with farmers is an integral part of our model going forward. The industry is constrained by lack of available seed material, lack of processing infrastructure. Pure Ocean Algae can provide both. We see ourselves as the centre of a hub providing essential services to farmers. To allow them to farm, we focus on everything else. So again, it's very similar to the dairy model, which has been proven great success nationally and internationally. Currently, we're in discussions with farmers that have 500 hectares of sites, licensed or under license application, and they're looking to supply to us, and that's where we see the ability to scale. And again, we don't have to grow all the seaweed, which is very, very important. We've very strong financials. The revenues, again, we started this year. We left research and development basically at the end of 2023. We've been, during 24, building our products, getting them onto the market, getting them out there. We put our first product to Hong Kong earlier in the year. That's been going into China through their cross-border e-commerce platforms, moving along quite well. We're hoping to drive with this new investment, the marketing strategy a little stronger than we have to date. But again, it's all about building, again, positive reception. We're now looking to bring similar products back into the Irish, UK, European, American market. Again, we see the potential here as very, very high, again, leading to Series A, which will give us the next ability to scale the business. Traction, I suppose we've already got sales for our hatchery material. We've already got into Hong Kong. We're developing that. We're getting market acceptance, and there's a willingness from wholesalers and distributors to take our products on. It's a case of us coming up with the products sooner rather than later, which is great. Again, our biostimulant work with Algae. Algae are very particular about the companies they work with. They're the biggest utilizers of seaweed biomass in France. And so far, so good. We're hoping to have final analysis of our product within, I imagine, January of this year, moving to production, hopefully towards the end of the year. And again, the regulatory piece there has to be put in place, but we hope to have that complete quite quickly. Again, our sustainable credentials are huge around seaweed. Again, people come to us because of that. They understand that we act in a certain way. We're looking, I suppose, to develop our whole environmental position by becoming B Corp in the next 2 years. But again, that's a work in progress. Again, we're already generating revenues. I think that, you know, reflects very much where we are in our cycle. We're recognised by Enterprise Ireland, the HPSU, and again, we've attracted VCs and influential capital who have already invested in the likes of Yield Labs Europe, See Ahead Investor Group in the States. And we're also working at the moment with Redsdale Food Group on legals for this investment. So everything's progressing nicely. And again, the founders ourselves have also invested in this round of funding. So we recognize the value of research. And I think that these two projects that we highlight the caliber of the companies and universities that we're collaborating with currently. And again, there's no better validation to be able to work with these companies because they are coming to us for our input. Again, the likes of Clon Bio, Simply Blue, Cadbury, Devonish Foyer, all very recognised brands. Again, Nestle, Almix, two big players. So again, for us, we're positioning ourselves in the value chains with these companies, early stages, admittedly, but we are certainly looking to develop along these lines. Our strategy for marketing basically is very straightforward. We're going to utilize existing wholesale distribution channels as well as e-commerce platforms. I think the focus for us is to develop our own internal sales capability, and we have plans to do that with this investment. I think this investment is basically going to be utilized to drive our business development capabilities. Again, we will continue to grow out our sea-based and land-based production, but again, based on market and market demand. So the balance is, for us, the problem is to balance the market demand with the production capacity. But so far, so good, we've been able to manage that. Again, a team, really important to us, you know, to implement our business model, we really have to bring together a team of that's multidisciplinary, ably assisted by our board, who, like the Yield Lab, Cadbury Group, and See Ahead, who all sit on our board and give us very, very good advice. I suppose the business has grown to now to the level that we need to expand our team. We're expanding our sales and business development, and that's key for us going forward. So again, to get to where we want to in our business plan, we've got to grow the company probably up to 15 employees by the end of 2025. I suppose highlights, our DTIF funding was a highlight for us. Again, our second round of funding, 1.25 million in 22. Again, company owns its facilities and it's asset backed with no debt in our balance sheet. We're a monthly burn of 35k, which is tight, but that's the way we run things very tightly. Again, we've access to 50% funding through BIM capital grants. We've also access to 80% funding opportunities in R&D. Again, management projections of 1.3 million per year to revenues, which again is quite conservative, we feel. Competition, our main competition in Ireland would be the likes of the seaweed company Green Turtle and Bantry Bay Marine Research Station, but we basically work with these companies hand in hand. It's a young industry. The competitive element probably won't come into it for another few years, but again, there's a lot of work to be carried out, and we don't necessarily have to carry all that work on our shoulders, which is great. Good relationships in the industry. I think there's a willingness to grow the Irish industry. Again, we're the only company that provides complete solution from hatchery to on-shelf products in Ireland, and one of very, very few in Europe to do anything similar. And again, we're completely self-sufficient and we control all the aspects of our supply chain. Investment highlights, 300,000 of common equity to be offered to Spark investors. So we have here we have 900. We actually have 1 million raised already, which is great. We're very happy with the progress to date. There's no debt in the company balance sheet. We have tangible assets of 1.5 million. Pre-money valuation of 6.5 million for POI is underpinned by revenue levels of 1.35 million in year 2 and near break-even on the P&L account. And it puts the business on a 4.8x revenue valuation multiple. So we think the opportunity is very, very large in our sector. Again, we're the only people doing what we do in the world. Lots of teams have tried, they're getting there. We seem to have made far more progress than anybody else. And now we're at a point of commercializing those learnings. Again, management projections net profit in the region of 3.8 million within 5 years. And we feel that this should give a return of 5x to our Spark investors. Exit strategy. Company is unlikely to pay dividends in development of growth phase. Again, we're focused on creating value. Collaboration opportunities and channel partners, we see that as a huge opportunity. That most likely that most interest will come from someone in that area. Also, the opportunity to work with global players in either our biostimulant or our supplement markets. Interest will be there. And one of our primary value is the fact that as a hub, we have access to a lot of biomass, and biomass is key to the development of the industry going forward, and will become more valuable going forward. So again, we're a highly credible team of experts in marine biotechnology. We're generating revenues. We have strong revenue forecasts. Seaweed is genuinely sustainable, and we have very strong sustainability credentials. Company is delivering world first commercially scaled production of Palmyra palmata, which is a huge opportunity because it's the most expensive seaweed. Again, with ability to scale in this area. The size of the global supplement and biostimulant markets are huge and growing. So a great place to be. Again, we're an Enterprise Island client. We've EIS qualifying, and we can, and Spark investors can avail of a 20% tax rebate, meaning that for every 1,000 it costs 800, with a minimum investment of 100. I think this is an exclusive opportunity for Spark investors to invest into an exciting marine biotechnology company, which has developed end-to-end solutions for delivery of much needed seaweed products. Thank you. So I'd gladly take any questions.
Thanks, Michael. I mean, I'm very struck by the sort of the characterization nearly as a national champion. When I look at the sort of the institutional investors coming in behind you, that there is a, it really is a unique offering globally. Well, it's a great story. But within that sort of, I suppose, institutional interest and backing on funding, I have a question from one of our investors in terms of your own backing of your own story. Are you investing yourself in this round?
Yeah, we are investing 150,000 into this round. So it's a form of cash, and we're converting our directors' loans. So yeah, we see the opportunity. We've been working in this area, mostly research, for the last 4 years. The last year has been given over to the next phase, which is the commercialization, and we see a huge opportunity. And for us now is the time to go all in behind the company, because we do believe that there is a huge opportunity here. We spend a lot of time looking at how to make money from seaweed, because there's a lot of people growing seaweed for different reasons, not quite getting there. And I think we've identified, because of the unique product that we actually can create, and we're one of the only people in the world that can create it, gives us a huge advantage in entering market, particularly in the dietary supplement market.
Thank you. Willie, so you might have a couple of questions there.
And another question come in. Why are you in the Chinese market or Hong Kong market first, Michael?
The Chinese market actually came to us requiring or requesting a product, a red seaweed product. The Japanese would have provided most seaweed products into China. obviously with the issues that they had around their nuclear power plant breaking down, the seaweed production was curtailed, and people that I had worked with them previously in the seafood sector knew we were in seaweed, so they'd seen a product that had sold 3 million units in 2 months, and they were wondering, could we do something similar? Of course, that product was withdrawn because of the issues around the contamination. So we said, yeah, we take a look, and we work with them to develop a product which, like I say, will be probably going, there's been a soft launch in the last week or so, but I think going forward after Christmas, they'll be driving that on. But there seems to be a huge requirement for these type of products. Again, the cultural thing in China, they understand seaweed a little bit more difficult. You have to be a little bit more nuanced in Europe and the States, but I think that nuance is prevailing.
Great, thank you. I have another question from an investor. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the licensing procedure? And obviously, if you want to scale up, you're going to need more licenses around the country.
Well, we currently have Pure Ocean Algae has applications with partner farmers in Kenmare Bay for 250 hectares. We have another license with a partner farmer on the East Coast for 150. We have ourselves at the moment 56 hectares, and we also have other people that want to work with us from a supply hatchery supply basis. So we're talking to all the relevant players. We're talking about hundreds of hectares. There's probably a capacity to develop the Irish industry to 2,000 hectares. There's probably 900 of that available at the moment. The issue is about the availability of seed material and also the markets. And I think we're looking to create that market activity that will actually drive the industry and allow the licenses are there and these new licenses to be used.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. There's a sort of a related question here around one investor asking about issues on the Atlantic seaboard. There were previous deals done, and I think there was Canadian names mentioned, but it was a, let's call it an intergovernmental agreement. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I can. It has very little to do with us. They would be, but the particular company in question, I think their intention was to look at buying up the hand harvesting rights on the West Coast. Again, we're cultivated seaweed, so we grow our seaweed on lines at sea on farms, fully regulated, fully monitored and managed. So we're not an unregulated what we call it, industry. We are aquaculture rather than the hand harvested.
Yeah.
And again, that's what it brings to bear, that the wild harvest in Ireland is unregulated, and it's problematic, and because of that it's suffering. And I think the requirement for seaweed biomass going forward will have to come from a cultivated source rather than from solely the hand harvested. But it is an issue. Again, thankfully it's not one that we have any stake in. It's someone else's problem, but it certainly is a problem. Wild harvest issues that are out there at the moment.
And on the subject, I suppose, of acreage, and you say regulated acreage, there was a figure in your slides there, 500 hectares. What does that translate to in the investor is asking here, what capacity, and this is for value added products, what sort of revenues could be generated off that kind of acreage, that kind of capacity in the value added market? Be it
depending on the mix
or dietary.
Yeah, we feel that realistically you're up to, you're in the 30 million to 40 million euro turnover from the added value products from that. Seaweed biomass itself is relatively, well, it's inexpensive. Cultivated material is slightly more expensive obviously than wild, but it's about the quality of the material, and it's also about the ability then to turn those into higher added value products. And that's where we see our specialization in going forward, is the ability to produce extracts, etc., where you bring the product to a different level, you push it up that value pyramid, And I think that's the opportunity for us. We have fantastic growing conditions in Ireland for seaweed. We need to manage it. We need to regulate it, and we are managed and regulated. And again, from that, you can build an industry.
Great.
Thanks.
Another question from an investor. Have you identified any opportunities in pharma, in the pharma ingredient sector?
We have, and I think at the moment we've a lot of validation work being carried out with various universities into functionality, etc. Again, pharma, we felt that, I think, and we feel that the supplement area gives us a little bit more scope at this point in the business's development. Pharma is, for us, an aspiration. The regulatory requirements are far higher. We don't see them as being an issue long term, but certainly short term. I think there is lower hanging fruit that we can take advantage of. But yes, we would. But again, you need to build the efficacy around the products, the functionality. Biofunctionality is some of it is dubious, to be quite truthful about it, but we're looking for efficacy. So everything that we promote, the ability to make claims, will be based on the science that we're actually creating at the moment with Irish universities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got one here as well from an investor noting, some serious logos there in terms of partners like Clonbio, Nestle, Carberry Group. I mean, these are very serious players. They must ask you, and I suppose this is the investor question, around your production cycle. Can you explain that a little bit, and what stands out for them in terms of what you're doing on the production side?
Well, I think it's our ability to scale our production is really important. Again, I think it's early stages, and we see Carberry wouldn't necessarily the example. The likes of Nestle are a huge international company. Carberry are very big in the Irish and international scene as well, but for slightly different things, they wouldn't be as extensive. But for the likes of Nestle to talk to you, you need to have 10,000 tons of product. They won't even consider conversations really. But so we're coming in early. We're coming in, I suppose, from they need to understand how this can be progressed. They have research teams that we're working with, and I think for the moment that's as much as we can expect. But we can show them, and we can make them aware of the methodologies that we're going to use. We feel that we can bring production up to 1,000 hectares, and we're not talking about offshore yet. There's huge capacity in the offshore environment in time to come. So again, we have a huge resource off the Irish coast, and I think that's what they see. They see leading companies trying to access that. Now it's very early stages. Again, we would be inshore basically at the moment, but we're building for offshore. And I think that's the interesting bit. They see that our aspirations don't stop at the shoreline. Our aspirations don't stop at the pier. It's about creating added value products, bringing innovation to the seaweed industry and seaweed biomass. And that's what they like, I think. I hope.
Thank you, Michael. A great way to finish. I'm very conscious of time. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for your questions. Again, Pure Ocean Algae, really a genuine national champion, a unique offering in the global marketplace. Lots of years building, now generating revenues. Some serious logos in there. So really, really impressive in terms of the names, the Nestle's of this world. But just to have the traction and already have international partners is very compelling. And as I said, we've only got a couple of 100,000 left to go before we hit target here. So really, again, I would be saying to investors online, please start making your considerations quite quickly. But thank you, Michael. Thank you to John Thompson of AuriGen as well. And thank you for all the attendees. Have a great weekend or happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you.